The 11th chapter of the Shokan by Frederick Chambliss Wemyss. I can't tell a story. I can remember everything about a Shokan, but I can't put it on paper. I remember everybody who came up there to visit. I remember the neighbors. I remember the elephant store. I remember the big deep. I remember going to the great chalet. I remember the shallow pool at the great chalet and the big totem pole outside. While Frank and Bob and my father swam in the big pool behind the great chalet, my mother and one of the other women in their circle of friends would take me to the front of the big chalet and hold me while I waded in what they called the shallow pool. The word shallow and the word chalet evoke the same memories of bright sunlight moving in little waves over splashing water. I remember the little bat the children knocked down in midair with a stick and a cat which held the bat in its mouth. I remember the daddy longlegs in the outhouse. I remember Jennifer running with me near the flowers and our mothers telling us not to go near because the bees might sting us. I remember putting my pinky near a flower and a bee stung that pinky, and I remember Jennifer standing by the charcoal grill with me and my father telling us not to put our fingers in the grill, and I put my pinky against a bright red piece of charcoal and burned that pinky. It didn't hurt as much as the bee sting. I think it was the same day. I remember my grandmother being there and my aunt and me running on the lawn with my sweater and my grandmother saying that if I was too hot I shouldn't wear my sweater, and I shouted back, "But then I'll be too cold." I remember being in the car with Dad as he drove forever up and down hills the time he rented the TV. It was getting dark and he pulled into a gravel parking lot and said, "Come on." We went inside a building with gadgets. Fans, bicycle chains, flypaper, sandpaper, and screwdrivers were all over the surfaces of big metal tables. A man said he had one TV left and took a TV with orange paneling and white trim from a wooden shelf. I remember the white cord dangling from the TV as my father walked to the car with it and the drive back up and down hills in the twilight. I remember asking if I could watch cartoons when we got back. The next day I kept switching the station to cartoons when he went out of the room. He'd look at me chastisingly and switch it back to almost complete static, and I could see flickering images which kept jumping. My father would react to the TV. He'd laugh. Then he'd be reading and not watching. Suddenly he'd watch again. "Now don't change the channel," he'd say. He'd go to the kitchen and I'd switch the channel again. "No, no," he'd say when he came back and switch it back. I remember all of my time at a Shokan was compelling, and I can't express it.